If you do all the steps in this video that I'm going to tell you, you will definitely increase your deadlift. This is your ultimate go-to guide on how to deadlift. I'm going to break it down, what you should be doing from your startup, during the lift, before the lift, everything. You will not need any other video other than this one. So let's start off with the deadlift. First of all, let's start off with the plates you're going to use. You can't deadlift using 5 kilo or 10 kilo plates if they're the regular small size plates. That is because the range of motion is going to be too big and you're setting yourself a huge task if you've never deadlifted before to deadlift from an increased range of motion. It's a hard enough lift already to get right. So let's start off by using bumper plates. If you have the bumper 5s in your gym or you have your normal 20 or 25 kilo plates, let's start off by using them. And then if you don't have those and you just have the normal regular plates and you're too weak or not strong enough to deadlift 60 kilos, then let's start off by putting the weights on top of other weights. Okay, so you lie down a 20 kilo plate and you have 5 kilos on there and you put that on top of it, so that increases the elevation, so that increases the height of the bar, so you have to lift the bar through a lesser range of motion. So you walk up to the bar. Where should your feet be? You want your feet around shoulder width apart. Imagine you wanted to jump to touch a basketball ring. Okay, that's where you want your feet to be, where you're going to be the most powerful. And then how do you want your toes? You can have your toes pointing straight forward, but for most people this is going to be uncomfortable because you lack the hip mobility to do that. So I recommend slightly pointing them out. By slightly pointing out your toes, you can allow for more glute contraction, which the glutes are a huge, strong, powerful muscle. So why would you not want to include them in this lift? And how close should you stand to the bar? Lots of people say you should stand with your shins touching the bar, but you have to bend down and get into that position. When you bend down, your knees are going to bend and they're going to push forward and they're going to push the bar forward. Therefore, why would you want to start with your shins at the bar? So how I like to do it is, if I'm wearing shoes, I like to go at the middle point of my shoelaces. So therefore I know when I get into my position, I bend down to touch the bar, put my hands around the bar, that I know then my shins will be touching the bar. That is what you want when you're at your bottom position. You want the bar to be touching your shins. If you set your feet up and you bend down and then your shins are not touching the bar, then you just know you need to stand a little bit closer or a little bit further away. Okay, hand grip. Where should you put your hands? Pretty much you want to put your hands straight down, and that's where they should be. You want your arms to be in a straight line. The reason why, because you don't want them too close, because then at lockout you're going to really struggle, and then you don't want them too far apart because you're making the lift much harder for yourself, because you're turning it into a snatch grip deadlift where you have to use a lot more upper back strength to complete the lift. So that's your basics, right? So let's go over that. So we're standing around shoulder width apart, a height that we could jump to touch a basketball ring from. We have our toes slightly pointed out. We're standing with the bar cutting off your shoelaces around in the middle, and you have your hands straight down holding onto the bar. Now what? How do we lift it? Okay, you might think you just put your hips down, use your legs and lift it. That is where you're wrong. There is much more to this lift, and if there is one lift in the gym where people ruin themselves for life, it is the deadlift. You have all heard countless stories. It's rather people crushing their legs on the leg press, which is extremely rare, or they destroy their back on the deadlift, and that is not rare. That happens a lot. It happens to a lot of people, and you really want to avoid this. Before you even start deadlifting, I want you to learn this one thing. Do not test your 1 rep max before you have really got the hang of how to deadlift, because that is how you will destroy your back and you will be crippled and you will not be going to the gym anytime soon. You have to take a month off. You have to go see a chiropractor or a physiotherapist. It's going to cost you loads of money. It's going to be horrible. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. There is no point in doing it. Instead, learn how to do the lift, build the base, build the muscles that are used in the lift. And then, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, if you want to test your 1 rep max, you can. But until then, do not. Okay, now, how do we lift the bar? Okay, what we want to do is we want to create tension. We are going to do this by pulling the bar off the ground, releasing the slack. You're not actually going to lift the bar, you're going to release the slack by pulling tension into the bar. That is going to engage the musculature used in the lift before you actually lift it. That is going to reduce the chance of injury and it is going to make you stronger. Because if you are doing the deadlift properly, you should not be using momentum. So we pull tension in the bar. I will show a video of me doing this. It's a little bit confusing to get your mind around maybe from a video of me talking. You put tension on the bar and then you want to sit your hips back, sit your bum backwards like you're sitting on a chair. This is once again going to create tension. You're going to engage your glutes and your hamstrings in the lift before you start. You then set your hips down low. How low should they be? You cannot squat a deadlift, okay? If you put your hips too far down, as soon as you lift the weight, they're going to shoot up and all the weight's going to go on your lower back and you're going to get injured. So how do we stop this? You want to set your hips back just far enough to where you feel tension and a stretch in your hamstrings and glutes, and then you lift from there. This will take time to master. This is why I'm saying 3 to 6 months. You will not get this the first time around. But a good way to look at it is to record yourself. Always record yourself when you're first starting out on the deadlift. Always record yourself week to week, because you can easily lose track of the things that you've told yourself before, and then your form slowly slips, and that is how you get injured. Now, what should we do with our breath? Okay. Once you've set your hips back, okay, before you set your hips back, I want you to take a big breath. Fill up your stomach with air. You are not filling up your chest, you're filling up your diaphragm. And what you want to do is imagine filling your whole midsection with air, even your back. You might think, well, that's impossible, but that's the visual cue I want to give you. So instead of just going and breathing out, you want to breathe outwards, your whole midsection, create intra-abdominal pressure. So we go, and then I want you to clench down your abs. That is creating pressure throughout your whole lift. That is protecting your lower back and will reduce your chance of injury. So now you've got your breath in, you set your hips back to the right amount. I want you to picture the deadlift in 2 ways. I want you to picture the first portion of the lift from the floor to your knees as a leg press, and then the second portion as a hip thrust or a glute bridge. So you push the weight off the floor. You push maximal tension through the floor, through your feet, lifting the weight up to mid-knee. And then from there, you are doing a glute bridge, a thrust to engage your glutes and lock the weight out. During this whole process, you should not breathe out. You should keep the air inside your stomach, inside your body, creating tension, intra-abdominal pressure. You should not breathe it out, because as soon as you breathe it out, you lose all tension and you increase risk of injury and you bleed power. As you set your hips back, I want you to turn your elbows in. What is this doing? This is creating tension in the lat, allowing you to use the lat in the deadlift. This will increase your power and strength in the lift. We've got to our knees. We then pull up even more, trying to emulate a hip thrust or a glute bridge, pushing your glutes through to finish the lift. And then at the top of the lift, you are done. And then you can lower the weight. You don't need to drop the weight. You don't need to slam the weight down. And you don't need to really slowly lower it down. You want to have somewhere in between. I don't think you should control the weight really all the way down, but you don't want to slam it down because you stand the risk of damaging the equipment or getting kicked out of your gym. So you want to have some control, but you don't need to really slowly lower it down.